Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is the post-match reaction show after Liverpool have maintained their place at the top of their Champions League group, which is about the only optimistic way you can look at tonight's result. I suppose you can also talk about how it keeps up our unbeaten record at Anfield in Europe under Jurgen Klopp, which is always fantastic. We want to keep this place a fortress. We don't want teams thinking that they can have any chance of coming to Anfield and getting a result no matter how they play. But I think it's fair to say that Liverpool were poor today, if we're being really honest. I think there's plenty to say about the refereeing performance as well, and I'm sure I'll come on to that a little bit later on in the video because I thought he was absolutely shocking for the vast majority of the match. But I'm going to start with our performance because I feel like we should blame ourselves before we try and deflect any blame onto anyone else. And I just thought it didn't quite happen for Liverpool for a lot of the night, and I can give some credit to Napoli as well. I thought they definitely they set up like an old-fashioned away performance in Europe. You know, plenty of men behind the ball. They played a sort of well-structured 4-4-2 in which one of the strikers, I think Dries Mertens, was always coming back, dropping deep and helping out in the midfield or trying to get play going from deep. But essentially, they did set up very, very defensively, and they played for the draw, really, because at the end of the day, that is the result that benefits them. As it stands, all they need is a draw in their final game against Genk to see them through to the round of 16. So this is a pretty good result for Napoli, all things considered. I don't think they had anything really in their mind about going hell for leather to get the 3 points and top the group and have a chance to go through as the top seed into the round of 16. They set up to get whatever result they possibly could tonight, and they did a reasonable job of doing it. I thought at times when Liverpool really, really clicked into gear, we did actually find ways through them, which to me tells them that maybe they weren't at their absolute best. They weren't impenetrable because we were capable of getting through that Napoli wall at times. The issue for Liverpool was we didn't quite get through it enough. And when we did, the finishing wasn't quite there. I think because of how just all-conquering this Liverpool team at the moment is and how they do win week in, week out, and at times they do tear teams to absolute shreds, we are sometimes overcritical or even hypercritical of the side. And in games tonight, where maybe if that had happened 3 years ago, right at the start of Jurgen Klopp's reign, you would have been really impressed with the performance and the way we did get through that Napoli backline, the way we forced our way through some of the interchanging and passing, which was really, really quick, and some of the chances we did create, and you'd really just come away ruining the fact we didn't stick away a couple of decent opportunities as we got towards the end of the game. But because we've set the bar so high, we expect now a win every single game, and I think there was almost a weird atmosphere both in the stands and on the pitch today, and I think it's because in the Premier League we've had this endless, relentless need to win every single game, to get 3 points week in, week out, this understanding that we basically can't afford to drop points in any match whatsoever in the Champions League, because we can, because a draw today works out all right for us, because we stay top of the group, pardon me, still in control of our own destiny going into the final game. It felt like there was just a 5% missing, and we've seen it so many times this season when Liverpool have gone into the last 5 or 10 minutes with the scores level or even being behind, and there's become this creeping sense of inevitability that we are going to get back into the game and we are going to find that late winner and we are going to come away with the 3 points no matter what happens. And that just wasn't there today, and I think it was because there was a lack of urgency both from the players and from the fans, because like I said, we didn't necessarily need a win, and it would have been fantastic, and we all talked about how it would have been great it would have been to have everything sewn up going into the final game, not having to worry about that game against Salzburg. And obviously there's going to be a little bit of squeaky bum time. Anything can happen in football, and Salzburg are a decent side. But as it stands, 1-1 is still a beneficial result to Liverpool. It keeps us top of the group, and with Napoli being a bit of a bogey team as well, and I don't necessarily believe in that as a thing. I don't really think we should be having bogey teams. The players shouldn't have a mental block. But certainly I think it's clear that Carlo Ancelotti knows how to set up a team against Liverpool, and they've certainly got players within their side who know their way around our players and know their way how to get the better of them. I'm thinking of Kalidou Koulibaly, who as usual was absolutely fantastic today. He did also have a slight lapse where he just throttled Mohamed Salah in the box, and the referee stood 5 yards in front of it, went, yeah, that's fine, which if you ask me is just diabolical refereeing. You know, it made me think of the penalty we got at Arsenal earlier on the season, which was given, where David Luiz grabs Salah's shirt in the box. Salah stays on his feet, he tries to play on, but the referee has the good sense to be like, you know, even though you haven't gone down like a sack of spuds, I can see that's a foul there, so I'm going to give a penalty regardless. The same thing should have happened today when a centre-back has got his hands over a player's shoulders, neck, back, chest, all at the same time. He's basically just mauling him in the box and pulling him away from the ball. You should be giving a penalty regardless of whether Mo Salah goes down or tries to play on and it was just symptomatic of what I thought was an absolutely diabolical performance from the referee. I think in the first half, he simply would not allow any kind of physical game to take place. He was blowing up left, right and centre. Any contact between players, it was basically whoever went down first would win the free kick, which is not the way to referee a football match. And while Liverpool are not necessarily a dirty team by any stretch of the imagination, our pressing style, the way our players are strong, robust and quick in the tackle, even though they do win the ball properly most of the time, it relies on the referee showing at least some basic level of leniency that just wasn't there today. The referee was blown up for everything. I think they said on the commentary that he's not exactly a Champions League veteran. He was not the usual referee that they call upon when they got a Spanish one in. He's like the second choice from Spain for European referees, and that really showed tonight as well. I thought the way he conducted himself in terms of his relationship with the players was just ridiculous as well. As a referee, you can't be an enemy of the players on the pitch. You've got to try and get on with them. You've got to be able to reason with them. And this referee, was just having a go left, right and centre. And when he beckoned players over, he wouldn't call their name and just gesture them over and tell them, that foul was going to be on the power, you're on your final warning, whatever. He'd do these weird arm gestures where he'd be doing that and he'd be giving free kicks like that. And he wasn't conducting himself in the way that a referee should. He gets on the wrong side of the players and therefore they can't have any sort of meaningful discussion. The way he handled the VAR was dreadful as well. When they get the Napoli goal, I think it's borderline whether it's a foul on Virgil van Dijk. I think because it causes an injury, we're more inclined to say it's a foul, because what then happens is there's a huge amount of space left open at the back and Dejan Lovren doesn't know whether to go to Dries Mertens or to just try and show him wide because he hasn't got Van Dijk backing him up in the middle, and that's essentially what leads to the goal. Obviously, Napoli are under no obligation to kick the ball out. It doesn't say in the rules that they've got to do that when a player goes down, and it's a kind of a 50-50 foul. Dries Mertens, I think the main issue is that he doesn't jump for the ball. All he does is go into Virgil van Dijk's body. He's clearly not trying to head it. He's just trying to take Virgil van Dijk down. And by the letter of the law, I'm pretty sure that is a foul. It's not clear and obvious, so it shouldn't necessarily be pulled back, but it's certainly something that the referee should have been considering. But what was absolutely mind-blowing was that then they get over that decision, he points to the spot, he gives the goal, and then he stops play again for the check for the offside. I mean, there's clearly been some sort of communication breakdown there, but there were plenty of instances in the game today. Also, when Sadio Mane gets elbowed in the head, Jurgen Klopp is rightly furious because he doesn't want his players being put at risk. He doesn't want them suffering from concussion or anything like that. So he throws a big wobbly because the referee isn't protecting the players properly, and the referee shows him a yellow card. The referee essentially showing someone a yellow card because they've rightfully called him out for not doing his job properly. So yeah, referee was absolutely diabolical and he didn't exactly allow the game to flow. I don't know whether Liverpool win the game with a slightly better referee, but from a neutral perspective, obviously I'm not a neutral, but there would be plenty of people watching the game tonight who were. It just ruins the spectacle of the game because it slows it down. Also, he didn't add anywhere near enough time on at the end for the absolute brawl that the Napoli players called, where for absolutely no reason they decide to start on Andrew Robertson when all he's doing is trying to win the ball on the touchline. They start a fight that lasts about a minute. Also, poor refereeing from the referee because he doesn't try and speak to anyone. Really, in that situation, what you should be doing is bringing the captains over and having a word with them. Instead, he just backs away, watches the whole thing, and then yellow cards everyone afterwards, which I don't really think is the right way to police it, because that means that the fight can basically go on as long as the Napoli players want it to do, and they wanted it to run on for as long as possible. But enough about the referee. Like I said, I thought he was diabolical. He was terrible tonight. But let's get back on to talking about Liverpool. Like I said, Napoli were good on the whole, but not absolutely brilliant. I think Liverpool on a better day would have broken them down. Defensively, at times, we looked like we were lapsing a little bit, although, to be honest, the defence didn't really have that much to do at all tonight. But I just thought players like Andrew Robertson, for example, who's normally fantastic, and to be fair to him, flawless for Liverpool, especially going forward, was a little bit off it. Sometimes he played risky passes at the back. His delivery into the box wasn't as good. And again, like I said, I feel a bit wrong to criticise these players, because at the end of the day, for any other team, that's probably a 6 out of 10 performance from Andrew Robertson. But because he's so good for Liverpool, we expect 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 performances from every single player on the pitch, every single game. And I guess we were slightly rocked by the Fabinho injury as well. I think it changed a little bit about the way we wanted to play in midfield. I don't think Gini Van Alden was able to affect the game as much as he would have wanted from that deep-lying role. I think Gini Van Alden in a deep-lying role can be fantastic at times. Sometimes he's fantastic against teams that come onto him, but I don't think he's necessarily a playmaker from deep, which seems bizarre because we see him as a more attacking midfielder. We see him as more of a playmaker than a sort of no-nonsense tackling defensive midfielder. But I think he's actually a lot better in combative midfields, and that is not what we had today. It was essentially trying to break down the Napoli wall, and I think that's more Fabinho's territory, whereas Wijnaldum would have been probably not better suited to the game at all, which is why he didn't start. I think James Milner and Henderson was the right call. James Milner at times, very, very good trying to drive into the box, but just at other times didn't quite have it there, and so it felt like Liverpool were brilliant occasionally today, and then at other times just weren't quite on it. And the main issue was that when we were brilliant, when we were creating chances, when we did get through that Napoli back door, we just didn't finish our dinner. And some of the credit goes to Napoli players for playing good clearances and stuff like that. Koulibaly obviously clears one off the line as well. Just think they will be absolutely ecstatic with their result today. They will be hugely pleased with the performance. That is about as good as a result as I think they could have possibly considered getting in the game today, and it puts them in a decent position in terms of qualification for the last 16. So when you put it that way, obviously we as Liverpool fans are a little bit annoyed, but the unbeaten record at Anfield under Jurgen Klopp is intact. And like I said, while stats don't necessarily mean anything, they are important in terms of, as we get into the knockout stages, we want teams to see Anfield as a fortress. We want them to be looking back to like the Barcelona game of last season and thinking, well, it doesn't matter what lead we take to Anfield, they can still turn it round. We don't want them looking at a game where Napoli beat us in the group stage and saying, well, there's the blueprint for how to stop Liverpool. What we've done today has shown that even if we're not at our best and you are absolutely brilliant, Liverpool will still find a way through and will still get some sort of result. And I obviously do back us to go to Salzburg. There's plenty of factors that make me worry slightly. Obviously, it's probably going to be freezing cold in a December game in Austria. They've also got Haaland up front, who could put in an absolute masterclass. He will probably score a goal at some point because Liverpool are making an absurd habit of conceding exactly one goal in every single game this season. So it's by no means over, but we are the masters of our own destiny, as it were. And I think while we did talk about how it would have been nice to have it as a dead rubber so we could rest players, I think in the Champions League, Jurgen Klopp has no interest in resting players whatsoever. He will have taken a pretty much full strength, barring maybe a few first teamers that would have needed a little bit of a rest for that game against Salzburg, regardless of whether we needed a result or not. So if anything, this, removes any clouds from his mind and makes him clear in his vision that we need to go there, get a result and book our place in the round of 16. So I'm disappointed, but not so much with the result and the position Liverpool are in, but more just because the game wasn't that fun to watch. It wasn't the usual swashbuckling spectacle we're used to from Liverpool. Some of that's down to our own flaws today. Some of it's also down to the man in the middle, the man in black, who was impeding any sort of, progress in the game as well. The way he handled us on free kicks as well was just mind-boggling. Whenever we tried to take a free kick, he'd make us stop and wait like 60 seconds at least before taking it for no obvious reason whatsoever. But like I said, we've talked plenty about the referee. Let me know down in the comments below whether you think the referee had any bearing on the result, whether you think Liverpool would have won if we'd had someone slightly better officiating the game, or whether you think the reason we didn't get it tonight is down to our own flaws. But most importantly, let me know whether you are happy with the position we're in at the moment, or you think we really should have done better to secure qualification with a game to spare tonight. Apart from that, that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. As always, you know what to do. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button down there, hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. Don't forget to follow at LSFocusTV on Twitter, and I'll be back on Friday with the pre-match content for the game against Brighton at the weekend. Until then, bye for now.